Well, I remember my senior year of college, I had just made this decision that I was not going to go to pursue the career path that I had majored in, which was accounting. And I had been down that path for years, but I had no idea what I was going to do next. So for the next few months, I explored my options. And what that meant was on my campus, almost every day, 3, 4, 5 days a week, they would invite a company to come and do some sort of info session. And I went to all of them. I went to dozens of them. And my grid, my big idea was I was going to go to those and sit there, listen, and see if it felt cool or not to work there. I mean, that was it. And guess what? Every single time I went, I'd be like, that doesn't sound cool. I really had no guiding lens or framework for how to make a decision about what to do next. In other words, I was lost. And that was after spending many, many years going down a path, lots and lots of money, and a ton of time. What we're going to dive into today is one of the most critical questions when it comes to your kid's identity. And throughout the adolescent years, the teenage years, 12 to 18, maybe even broader than that, the most important thing we can do as parents and leaders in kids' lives is to help guide them to get clear about who they are, the fixed points of their identity. And today we're going to get into values. And the specific question that we want every single kid to be able to answer is this: what do you stand for? Fast forward a few years later, I actually figured out what to do. And years into my career, my wife and I went through a process after we had just started to have 3 kids and taken a step back to think, what in this next season of life, now that we have 3 kids, what do we want life to be like? What are the things that we need to adjust? And one of the things that we decided ended up having a great impact in a conversation I had in a job interview. In this job interview, I asked about the amount of travel. And the comment was not that much in the first year. I mean, the first year, 18 to 20 days a month on the road. But after that, it's going to calm down to 10 to 14. I immediately knew that it was a no-go. And I said that. I said, thank you very much. This is definitely not a good fit for me. Because my wife and I had just decided that me being home, me being able to take the kids and pick them up from school, coach their sports, be the parent chaperone on their field trips, was something that was extremely important to both of us and how we wanted to roll. And so it enabled me to make a clear decision without any regrets. I turned that down and never looked back. That's the power of getting clear about your values. When you know what you stand for, decisions become easier and regrets become rarer. Most kids don't have a clear sense of what truly matters to them. And instead, they make choices based on how they feel in the moment, like my big plan my senior year of college. Or they try to sense what their parents want from them, or maybe what their peers are doing. And you've probably watched your kid make significant decisions based on what they are doing. And the external pressure of either trying to fit in or try to avoid making waves and deviating from the path becomes a key factor in how many people make decisions. Or sometimes they just take the easiest or most obvious path, the path of less or least resistance. Research that I've been doing for years now on the broader research area is self-determination theory. Within that, something called the self-concordance theory. It shows that when your goals align with your values, your intrinsic values, the ones that you've chosen, people will experience more motivation, more resilience, more persistence, and more long-term well-being. In other words, without understanding your own personal values, you'll make the wrong choices for the wrong reasons. Your kids will drift. They'll waste time. They'll make poor choices. They'll choose things for the wrong reasons. They will live with regret. They will waste time. They will waste money. But the good news is you can guide them to clarity. So how do we do that? I'm going to talk about 3 easy steps you can do when it comes to helping your kids define their own values. The broad question is, what do you stand for? But asking like all of these questions that we have, and there's 30 of them, all of these questions, the question at face value might be complicated, and there are layers and there's nuance. So instead of kind of coming front and center and say, hey kid, what do you stand for? You might try to kind of walk around the edges of the wall of that question. You might start by asking things like, what are three things that you would never give up? What are the three most important things to you? If you were to prioritize what you want for your life, if you were to pick one thing from our family and something else from someone else's family, what would you choose? Another question could be, what are you willing to fight for? What are the things that you're willing to sacrifice for? Those are different ways, kind of adjacent ways to get at fundamental values. Secondly, and this gets a little theoretical, but what I want to do for my kids is explain to them and help them have a grid and a lens to understand the difference between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Research has proven, again, back to the self-determination theory, that when you are pursuing things for extrinsic reasons, to earn money, to get security, to get status, to seek approval, to impress others, that will inevitably lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. And it's hard to, as parents, say, don't pursue money, don't pursue security, because that seems to be tied up with our own definition of success. Our kids being able to pay their own bills, to be self-sufficient, to be safe, at least financially in this world. So it's complicated. And instead, on the flip side, intrinsic goals are ones that are motivated by growth, becoming and stepping into your potential, strong relationships, making an impact in the world. And that might sound a little bit more abstract. That might sound fuzzy. That might feel like, that's going to mean they're going to become philosophy majors or psychology majors or humanities majors, and they're going to be broke and penniless, or they're going to become artists. Like whatever your version of that is, the kind of meme of parents who are like, you can't do that. You got to go where the jobs are. You got to become an engineer, go into business, become a lawyer. Instead, we actually want to encourage them to search within, find things that they are drawn to, things that they want to grow in, areas of interest, ways in which they want to have a fulfilling life. And we want to support and double down on those things, encourage them, help them understand the difference, because the research shows that kids who pursue things for intrinsic reasons will persist longer, they'll have more resilience, and they'll actually be more fulfilled. So in other words, encouraging your kids to pursue intrinsic values will help them become happier and more successful people, which is what we want. Finally, I think what we want to do, the third step, is to help kids understand that their actions need to align with their values. And so what we want to kind of help them see is when they experience less stress in pursuing goals, we can be a mirror to that. When do you feel the most kind of like out of gear, whether it's at school or playing sports or hanging out with your friends? And on the flip side, when do you feel the most energized? When do you feel the most alive? When do you feel most yourself? Those are clues. Those are clues that we can be mirrors towards them to help them understand their own values and their wiring. The last thing is, I want to actually be clear to my family, to my kids, what our values are. And I want to give them a caveat. These are values that are important to your mom and dad. These are the things that we've decided are the most important. And you can borrow our values for yourself. In fact, I would love it if you do. But I don't want you just to adopt them because we do. I want you to think about them. I want you to reflect on if this is important to you. Some families, the parents might say, we value security and safety and being together. And when we think about having extra time or extra money, what we want to do with that is really kind of hunker down and be together. Well, you might have a kid that's wired to be adventurous. You might have a kid that's wired to make a big impact in the world. And so you might have a bit of tension there where you're saying, no, you got to stay home. You got to stay with us. This is what real people, good people do. And you got a kid that's like chomping at the bit. Not because they're bad, not because they're young, it's just because of how they're wired. And so I actually want to share that with my kids and say, this is what we have defined as our values. This is what we've discovered to be most important. But I want to recognize that you have to go on your own journey. And so I want to support you. And I want you to know that there's not going to be disappointment from us. Actually, we're going to support and encourage you to discover yours. And chances are you're going to make some mistakes, which is how you learn what you stand for. Making mistakes and going down a path and discovering it's not right for you is by far the best way for your kids to learn. So that tension, of course, is real. We want our kids to thrive. We want them to avoid pain. We want them to be successful. We want them to not have regrets, not waste time, not waste money. But we can't control them as they do that. And we want them to learn that on their own. And of course, if they don't define their fundamental values, they will struggle to make good decisions. They will be influenced by others' expectations, external things, seeking validation, seeking approval, seeking things that don't really matter and have been proven throughout time and research that just won't satisfy. I don't want my kids to feel empty inside. I don't want my kids to wake up and say, is this it? I got it. And that's not what I wanted. I want them to be discovering it as they go. So if your kids haven't really started that process yet to think about what's important to them, you can start it for them. You can kickstart it by asking them questions, by being a mirror, by sharing your own personal values, by helping them see where they seem to be lit up and where they seem to be just going against the grind. I want my kids to make confident decisions, to make the best use of time, to be clear and confident about the choices that they make and live a life with conviction and purpose. So start this week. Start asking your kids these questions. Start being a mirror. Start sharing your own fundamental values. And if you haven't really put words and phrases to them, perfect chance to do it. We've got more to help guide you as you coach and guide your kids on our website, on our blog. Particularly, there's websites, there's articles that we've written over the years. We have courses, digital courses, all about guiding your kids to do this sort of clarifying self-reflection work. We are actively working with veterans in transition. We're actively guiding, supporting teachers and educators and sports coaches to do this central work. So don't hesitate to reach out, subscribe to the YouTube channel that we're posting regular videos like this. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media for more tips and guidance and tools, because we want your kids to be self-aware and to be prepared to make the best choices for how they spend their time and their lives. We'll be back soon with another episode.